Hey, welcome back to DT Performance and welcome to another video. In this video, we're going to be upgrading our car trailer with some winches and some other goodies we're going to take a look at here in just a second. So that's what this video is going to be about. Stay tuned. Let's get started. So Harbor Freight had a sale on this Badland ZXR 12,000 pound winch. So I decided to purchase one for my trailer. We did get a winch rope. That's why we're using the rope fairlead or hawse, if you want to call it that. We got us a battery, solar charger, the winch, fairlead mount, and I'm thinking that we're going to put it all inside this toolbox. I had to shop around to find a tall toolbox that everything would go down inside, and that was my idea, is to get everything in the box and out of the weather. And the way the winch falls on the trailer, the lights fit right in here perfectly, and I'm thinking I may put these in the box, cut a hole, but I don't know. I saw at Harbor Freight those magnetic lights that you can just pop on the trailer, and I may do that because it's more versatile to move them around. So instead of putting something permanent that I can't move and maybe taking the potential of shining them down the trailer this way and in my eyes when I'm trying to load something on the trailer, we may just get those magnetic lights that we can move around. They stick to the fenders all over the trailer and can use them. So first things first, we're going to get this box down. We're going to get it put on top of the winch plate, or actually cut the hole and slide the toolbox up, put the winch in here and get everything started. So let's go ahead and get the box down here, get it measured, and cut the hole, and see if we can get this winch and all these components, that the battery and everything, down inside the toolbox. Now this is not how the toolbox is going to sit. It's actually going to sit down on the frame. For the sake of time, I didn't show you measuring the hole, but I want to show you what I ran into. So my winch mount that's underneath here, when I tried to square it up, just set the box down and slide it up to the winch plate, the winch mounting plate, it looked like it was off to one side. So what I did, I made some makeshift plumb bobs and taped them. You can see it's just a nut on some string, because I want it to be square with the trailer. I want it to look even. I don't want, 4 or 5 inches hanging off on this side and only 2 or 3 on that side. So what I did, I made these makeshift plumb bobs, and I measured off of the trailer to square it with the trailer. Now my winch plate that's underneath there is a little off. So my main concern was not squaring it with the winch plate, but actually squaring it with the trailer. So if my winch plate is sitting, to one side or the other inside the box, that doesn't matter. The aesthetics of the box looking square to the trailer tongue is what I was after. So let's go ahead and get this sat down. I've already got the hole marked. I'll show you that. And we will cut the hole and slide it up on here and start fitting the components in. Well, we got the hole cut. Good tight fit around the winch plate. The only concern here now is that this rail has got the toolbox pushed off the winch plate a couple inches. So I'm going to have to do some careful measuring. These are 2 5-inch pieces of C-channel welded together, and you can see the seam here. Well, underneath here is the ledge for those C-channels, so my bolt holes are going to have to go here. So this winch is going to have to sit up as close as I can get it. My thought was, when I bought this fairlead mount, was I was going to bolt it to the front of the toolbox, cut the hole, and mount the fairlead on the outside, and use these holes here as my mounting dimensions. So if I do anything like that, I'm going to have to make this hole on the toolbox here, sorry for all the racket, I'll have to make this a little wider and slide this in from the front and bolt it to the toolbox, and see if we can get our holes measured and make sure everything works out right. So let me get this set up, and we'll mark these holes and get them drilled, and when we cut back on, maybe I'll have this figured out for the fairlead, if this is going to go on the front of the box. I'd really like to keep this as reinforcement. I mean, this is it's a nice toolbox, but it's thin, and I'd like to bolt this to the fairlead through this box. So let's see if we can get this figured out, and we'll come back and see what I've got. Okay, we've got our center line on our winch plate. I'm going to use this pick tool to go inside these holes here and scratch out my back 2 holes. Then we'll use this fairlead mount to mark the front 2. I've got my winch all the way against the front of this toolbox because my holes need to be on the other side of that weld that I was showing you. And we're going to get those holes drilled. The tricky part is going to be getting the bolts under here. As you can see, I don't have much room. And then we'll get the toolbox actually bolted down to the trailer. I've got these 2-inch. We're going to go up through the bottom and strap these on, drill the holes in the box, and get it permanently mounted to the trailer. So let me get these holes drilled, figure out how we're going to get those bolts in, get these put on. We've got to cut a hole in the front for the fairlead as well. So I'm going to use this somehow. Just got to figure out how I'm going to get it to slide through the front, and we can put our fairlead on it. Just give it a little structural rigidity to mount that fairlead. So let's get all this done. I'll turn you back on and we'll see the progress when we get the holes drilled. We got the holes cut for the winch plate. We got the hole cut for the fairlead. Originally I told you I was going to mount the fairlead to the toolbox, but by the time we get it mounted up flush here, it's going to put my fairlead back in here, and I was afraid that if I was pulling something up on the trailer, my rope would hit the channel, the top channel on the trailer. So I lined everything up, and it worked out because now my fairlead mount plate holes line up with my winch holes, and that gives me just enough room. Let me do a top view. You can see my fairlead sticks out just past the top rail. So if I'm pulling something, my rope's not going to get scrubbed on this rail here and possibly damage it, because I am using a rope and not a cable. Even if it was a cable, you wouldn't want it to rub here. So I'm going to get this thing slid up on here. One thing I did do, I had to notch out the thickness of the winch plate so that it would slide up on here. So the next thing is we're going to get this box mounted. I've got the mounting holes for the U-bolts, and we'll get the winch bolted up, get the rope changed out, and I'll show you the lights that I ended up using. So before we mount the winch, I took the cable off because I actually put the winch in the box and was trying to get it mounted with a cable, and it was giving me a lot of interference, but I'm glad I decided to take it back out so I could show you guys. Take the winch off, or the winch cable, and when you put a rope on, my new rope came with a lead that has an aluminum compressed block on it. Well, these new winches, you know, a lot of old winches or older styles, I've seen guys actually take the rope and stick it through this hole and put a set screw on it. These newer winches actually have a threaded hole. So I had to pause for a day. I didn't have it's a M6 by 1.0 thread. So I went and got me a bolt, and I'm going to bolt it through there. One thing you need to note, this plate's only about 3/16 of an inch. And if you go too far into that plate with a bolt, it will hit the internal workings of the winch. So make sure that I put mine through my lead, and I left about 1/4 of an inch sticking out. So I'm going to feed this rope on by hand, and then eventually we will put weight on it, or even pull a car up on the trailer and tighten it up so it's spooled up good and tight. So that's the next thing. I'm going to get the rope on here, then we'll get it mounted. I think I'm going to be able to go underneath the trailer. I can't show you right here, but I think I can get my hand underneath that hole there and get the bolts in it, but we'll see. I'm not going to show you spooling the rope. We're just going to get it bolted up, then we'll put the battery, the disconnect, get it all wired up, and we'll test it, and that'll end out the video. Okay, I wanted to cut you back on for just a second and show you some things that I have run into, some problems. So you saw in the video where I had cut the perfect shape of the winch plate fairlead mount, but when I tried to mount the winch, the rope was going to scrub this bottom piece, so I just went ahead and cut it off and made the hole the entire depth of the plate. So now if it rubs on anything, it's going to rub on this fairlead mount. Well, that started the problems because I had to remove the toolbox to cut that, and when I did, I could not get the U-bolts off. Evidently when I torqued them down, they galled, and some of them bent, and these were stainless steel and they were expensive. but I had to cut them off, so now I've had to order some more square U-bolts to mount the toolbox. But that's not a big deal. I've got some more stuff on order. It's frustrating when it costs money. The other thing is I've tried mounting this winch inside the toolbox and getting those bolts up underneath on that winch plate. I messed with it for an hour, and I could not get them to feed up in there. So I had the idea. I went to my local hardware store. I started out and was going to buy some bolts, or actually I had some bolts, and I cut them off, and I was just going to make some studs and screw them down in here and just leave studs hanging out. But when I got to the hardware store, they actually had some metric studs. So I've painted them to keep them from rusting, and I'm going to Loctite the bottom and screw those in there and just put studs, and then put bolt nuts on the bottom. So I did have to go get nuts. I didn't have any 10 millimeter by 1.5, and that's what you're looking for. I was going to show you guys a trick too that I used on the S10 and some other videos, getting washers to go through frame holes so you're not fiddling and dropping washers. I take a little bit of, I clean my bolts, or clean my nuts and my washers up with some brake clean, and I just take some super glue and dab a few drops of super glue around the edge of the bolt and glue my washers to it. Now, you can get flange nuts, but they're hard to find too. But this right here will at least allow me to get a washer on there. And then when I'm up under that plate, I can actually just sit this nut inside of my socket and buzz them up on there. So that's where we're at. We've got new U-bolts ordered. Looks like it's going to be another day. We did get our winch rope on. I showed you that, hand tight. We will tighten it up. But I'm going to go ahead and mount everything, and then we will get the U-bolts in and put the U-bolts in later. It'll be just a second for you guys, but I'm going to have to wait. This is Saturday. It'll be Monday or Tuesday before I get those, and then we'll look at putting maybe a battery tray. I think I'm going to put a battery tray. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a box or a tray yet, but you'll see when we turn the video back on. All this should be mounted. We'll have everything wired up, the battery box in it, and should be ready to go. So after I got the winch rope rolled on by hand, and I showed you guys, I went to the hardware store and got an M6x1 bolt and cut it down where it wouldn't hit inside the drum. I was looking for the bolts that bolted the winch contact down to the top, and I found this inside the pack. Imagine that. It is the perfect size to put your winch rope on. My rope didn't come with one, so I didn't think that this would have come with one either, but your ZXR Harbor Freight winch will have a bolt made specifically to mount your winch rope. Luckily, I don't have to unspool all this, but I'm going to go back and put the one that comes with it on there. So my mistake, I should have checked the pack. I did read the instructions, but I overlooked the fact that it came with a rope mounting bolt to mount inside of the drum. So just thought I'd point that out before you guys took the time to go to the hardware store and get a bolt and try to make it work. Okay, we got the winch mount bolts in. Much easier with those studs that I put in there. We got the U-bolts came in. I got it mounted to the trailer frame, cut them off flush. I elected to build me a battery tray, and I made it the shape of the toolbox. And I didn't make it square because, as you can see, I couldn't get my straps in. If I would have put square tubing right here, it would have been different. I wished I'd have thought further ahead and moved these in to where I could have made just a square box, but I didn't think that far enough ahead. So basically it's just 1 inch by 1 inch thin wall square tubing. I had an old basketball goal backboard, and I cut it up and made that. I'll pop up a few pictures right here, and you can see that all it is that tubing. Like I said, I welded it together. I put a sheet metal bottom inside of it and tacked it up, welded it up, ground it down, sanded it down, painted it, and put a few ears on it. You can see here for the battery hold down, and I went to Reilly and I just bought this battery kit. I'll leave this part number for you, 01409. It comes with your 2 J-bolts, some plastic washers, and then the top that will fit my battery. My battery is a Group 27 marine battery. It's going to go right here. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to have to cut this. This is way too long, but we're going to wire up our disconnect, wire up the battery, and then I'll show you the lights. And I'll do it off camera, but I'm gonna tie this to a tree and tighten up the rope. But this is what I wanted to show that worked out. This is the first thing that's worked out on this trailer. As you can see, that is the mounting holes for the hinges on the toolbox. And just so happens they are the same distance apart as the disconnect. So what I did, so I don't have to drill more holes in the toolbox, I made me a little bracket, and I'm going to mount this plate to it. And this third hole here, basically what I did is I countersunk it so that it wouldn't interfere with my winch plate. And those other two bolts, the disconnect will go right on top of it like this, and it will mount there and give it some rigidity. We'll bolt that hinge on, and we'll run our cables. So let's get the cables run. We will, I'll show you the lights I have, and by the time I get this done, it'll probably be dark, and we'll get a night shot of what the lights look like on in the dark. Finally, here it is, guys. We got the battery mounted with the disconnect. Winch is mounted. The only thing I don't like about this winch is you have to have the handheld to run it. I wished it had some push buttons on the actual contacts. I may figure that out later. But I was going to show you in the first of the video, I was going to put lights inside of here, but I opted for these. I'm not going to turn it around, it'll blind you, but I opted for these, the Harbor Freight rechargeables. So what I did, I also have this solar charger that I'm going to use, because sometimes when I park my truck or park my trailer out in the yard, I don't want to drag it up here and put a battery charger on it. So I can use this to charge it while it's outside. And also, if some of you didn't know, on your 7-way plug, you do have a charging wire that connects to the back of your truck. And I'm going to run a wire out of this harness into the box, so when it's plugged up to the truck, it'll be charging from the truck's alternator. You can look the diagram up online and figure out which pin it is. But again, some people don't know these 7-ways have a dedicated pin for a charging pin, so I'm going to run one to the battery. But let's, I waited till it was dark, and the reason I opted for these lights, again, because if I mounted them to the front of the box, I was afraid they'd shine in my eyes at night trying to load stuff. And these, they have 3 different brightness levels. And then you can tilt them, so if it was in your eyes, but you can see with one on each side. And if you're loading cars at night, let's walk around here, it more than illuminates the bed of the trailer. So the benefit to me was, once you get something loaded, you can reach up here, grab one of the lights, take it with you. You know, you could even stick it to the fender. You can stick it on the sides. So more versatile. And my thought with putting this on here, this solar charger, again, when my trailer's out in the yard, that's great for stuff like that. But also, these lights are USB-C. I can get a 12-volt adapter that will plug into this and just snap in one of those like you stick in your car to charge your phone with. And I can run my 2 cables up in here to charge both of my lights, either with the solar charger or, you know, off the accessory on the truck. So that's going to end out this video. And in the upcoming video, we're going to get back on the S10. If you're new to the channel, this trailer is actually going to haul an LS swapped S10 that we're going to be putting on the strip hopefully pretty soon. So still got to get the exhaust done, transcooler, and some other things. So if you haven't seen those videos, check them out. They'll pop up here shortly. And I appreciate you guys stopping in. Don't forget to hit that like button. Leave some comments below. As always, I'll put all the parts in the description box. Subscribe before you leave, and we'll catch you in the next episode.